Charles, how is the sound quality? Can you hear us clearly?
Yes, Anna, I can hear you clearly, 100%.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Asante.
Karibu.
And can you see the screen, the PowerPoint?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, then I shall start. Okay, just trying to move my many windows around. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to this workshop. And those that are in Dar es Salaam with Charles, welcome. And also welcome to those who are joining us online. My name is Dr. Anna, work for the MECS program. Jane, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yep, good morning, everybody. I'm Jane Spencer. I'm the Challenge Fund Manager for MECS, but also the project manager for this work that we're doing in Tanzania. Welcome. Simon?
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Simon Batchelor. I'm the director of the MECS program.
Thank you. So we are here today to talk about business plans and how to write a sustainable business plan. And so we will start with introductions and then Simon is here to take us through business plan thinking. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. As Jane said at the beginning, this is being recorded. We hope that's okay with everyone so that we can circulate it later. So I'll get started. So our agenda is here. There will be a quick introduction to MECS, to the MECS program. We'll touch on what is eCooking and why eCooking. Why does the MECS program focus on eCooking? Then we'll talk a little bit about this fund, the seed fund, the Jiko Fanisi La Umeme seed fund. And then we'll get into the business planning workshop. There will be a lunch in an hour and a half. And then after that, we will finish the business planning. And there will, of course, be opportunities for questions. So MECS is a UK aid-funded research and implementation program. It started in 2018 and runs until 2026. It's based in the UK, so myself, Simon and Jane are joining you from the UK. Although I'm sometimes in Dar es Salaam, I'm not able to be there this time. So we're grateful for this technology. That means we can still be together. The MECS program aims to accelerate the transition to modern cooking fuels. Now, what I mean by that is electric cooking, biogas, bioethanol, and bio-LPG. So MECS is focused on those fuels. And we do have a new program in Tanzania that aligns with the government's National Clean Cooking Strategy, which was released in May. So first, I want to talk about what do we mean when we talk about e-cooking, electric cooking. So there are these highly efficient e-cooking appliances. You can see them here on the right. We have the electric pressure cooker, rice cooker, induction hob, and an air fryer as examples. Now, these are highly efficient appliances because of the way they, because of the technology. So an electric pressure cooker, for example, cooks at high pressure and is also insulated. The rice cooker is a kind of insulated cook pot. The induction hob has very efficient heat transfer from the hot plate here to the pot. And the air fryer is like a small oven where hot air is moved around, but it's because it's so small, it's very efficient. So cooking with these new appliances saves energy compared to other cooking fuels. So I want to just go a little bit further into the electric pressure cooker. The electric pressure cooker is the most efficient way to cook with electricity. Okay, so the reason for that is that it seals completely shut. it has a rubber seal that goes completely shut, and that means that the pressure inside the pot can go higher, which means the temperature can go higher. So the food is cooked at these higher pressure and higher temperature. They're also insulated, right? So they're not losing so much heat to the outside. And they're also automated. So if you are cooking with an electric pressure cooker, you put in your beans or your wali, whatever you're cooking, you set it off and you can walk away and do something else. So EPCs, or electric pressure cookers, do save energy and time and cost compared to if you're cooking with other fuels that you are paying for. And there's a slide here that shows a little bit more of the electric pressure cooker. So this insulated housing, there's a lid, and there's various aspects here which you can look at and find also in the Uganda eCookbook, and which are to do with the control of the device. So there's a difference between efficient electric cooking or efficient e-cooking and inefficient e-cooking. So here on the left, we have some pictures of a resistive hot plate. Now, it can be confusing because it can be similar. A hot plate can look similar to an induction hob, but they work differently. And cooking with this resistive hot plate loses a lot of energy. Loses energy from the heat transfer, from the pot, etc. And cooking with these sort of devices does not save time and money. But cooking with these efficient devices, such as the electric pressure cooker and these other ones, does. So I just want to be really clear that when we in the MECS program are talking about electric cooking, when you hear me say e-cooking going forwards, I am meaning these efficient devices. We're not talking about hot plate, which is kind of the old way of electric cooking. We're talking about these newer, more modern devices. So hopefully that is clear. So now I'm going to go into why has the MECS program got a program on electric cooking? Why do we focus on electric cooking? Well, that's because electric cooking is a really viable solution to the clean cooking challenge. This photo, this man is cooking ugali on an EPC. So electric cooking is one of the target fuels in the government strategy. It's named as one of the fuels. And also the electricity generation in Tanzania is increasing as the Julius Nyerere hydropower plant is coming online. I think now 6 turbines out of 9 are online and creating hydropower. So as that goes up, that electricity can be used to support millions of people to cook with electricity because there is available electricity. And this is going to continue into the future. So the idea is that as there is this progress in electricity access and electricity generation, as more of Tanzania gets connected to electricity, it's possible through electric cooking to solve the clean cooking challenge as well as the electricity access challenge if we do electric cooking. And electric cooking is affordable. So unlike for LPG, if you are using electricity for cooking, it's not imported, it's made in Tanzania, and there's no recurring cylinder cost. You're just paying for units as you go. And I'll show more data about that in a minute. Our studies have shown that all Tanzanian dishes can be cooked with a combination of electric pressure cooker, air fryer, and induction hob. So you can cook ugali, you can cook makande, you can cook beans, all of those actually on an electric pressure cooker. And there's been positive feedback from the people that are using these devices. The studies are showing that people find them very convenient, that they save time, that they save cost. And of course, there are also savings of charcoal and wood, which is important for saving, for reducing deforestation, for reducing greenhouse gases. There is an upfront cost to the device. So those devices do cost, depending on the device, between kind of $40 to maybe $100 or even more dollars upfront cost. So although it is affordable when you are using it, there is that challenge of acquiring the device. But that challenge can be overcome with various initiatives. Don't seem to have that slide yet. So, for example, using PayGo, pay-as-you-go eCooking, on-bill financing, and carbon financing, but I'll go into that later. So the eCooking opportunity is very big in Tanzania. We have many people, 90% of people cooking with charcoal or firewood. Nearly 5 million households are connected to TANESCO. The aim is that 100% of people are connected by 2030. And I know TANESCO and REA, the Royal Energy Agency, are making a lot of progress. But less than 5% are using that electricity for cooking. So we do have this significant opportunity, particularly in places where people are already connected, in urban places like Dar es Salaam, Dodoma, Mwanza, that people can cook with electricity. And cooking with electricity gives a lot of impact, has high impacts. So this is a study for the first 3 million households that move from cooking with charcoal to cooking with electricity. So if 3 million households switch from charcoal to eCooking, they save a lot of time. This is the time saved per household, 260 hours per household in 1 year. They are saving in time. There is a lot of energy used, and this translates directly into grid revenue, so revenue for TANESCO. Of course, there are also savings for the household because they are no longer buying charcoal, and I'll show that on the next slide. There's carbon reduction, and there's reduction of unsustainable wood harvest, and there's also a significant health impact because there's a high negative health impact of cooking with charcoal. And so here is a slide that shows the cost of cooking. Cost of cooking with electricity, LPG, and charcoal. So this is the cost of cooking in 1 month for a household of about 4 people using the modern cooking appliances. So if you are a Lifeline tariff customer operating on D1 tariff, this is the cost of cooking for that whole month. If you are on T1, the normal tariff, this is the cost of cooking, which is about $8 a month. And you can see the difference between cooking with electricity and LPG, which goes up to $15, but the huge savings if you are cooking with charcoal. So cooking with charcoal is really a very expensive way to cook. It's more expensive in Dar than it is in Dodoma, because charcoal in Dar es Salaam is slightly more expensive. And this is the large saving that people can make if they switch from charcoal to electricity. So it goes down from about $32 per month to about $8. So this is the potential that electric cooking has for people to save money once they acquire the device. There are positive impacts of electric cooking on gender. Electric cooking saves time, and often it is the women who are cooking. There's health impact because of reduced indoor air pollution. People save money, so there is poverty reduction impact because people are not spending so much money on charcoal. There are positive impacts for the environment, for climate change, and for revenue generation from sales of electricity. But there are barriers to electric cooking, which is why the MECS program is working on various of these. So for example, I talked before about the upfront cost of the appliance is high. To buy that appliance is a challenge. There's a challenge that people are not aware of the benefits of electric cooking. They're not aware that they could save time, that they could save money. that it is cheaper than cooking with charcoal. There are challenges around repair and maintenance. When a device is breaking, where do people go? The supply chain for electric cooking is small and needs support, which is why we're here today. And of course, there's an issue of quality of appliances needs to be assured. So we do have a program that's working on multiple aspects of these. And I'm going to talk a bit more about the solutions for affordability. So how do we deal with that upfront cost issue? So TANESCO is starting to use on-bill financing. And this means that as a TANESCO customer, you can pay a small deposit and then make contributions to the appliance over time through your electricity bill, through the Luku prepayment meter. And this means that the customer does not have to pay everything up front. Say it's $70, they pay small amount, and then they make small payments through their electricity bills. And this makes it much easier to pay for the appliance. Pay as you go is a similar mechanism. So some people in the private sector are looking at this. In PayGo eCooking, you pay a small amount via M-Pesa or mobile money to unlock the device. Maybe you buy 2 hours of the device unlocks, and then you cook. When you've used up your 2 hours, the device locks and you can't cook anymore until you pay more money. So again, the customer is paying a small amount upfront and then making small payments over time until they own the appliance. Now, for PayGo to work in electric cooking, you have to have the technology inside the device that can lock and unlock. That's what you need to make PayGo work, and that does have an extra cost. So it's kind of a trade-off. And finally, another solution for affordability is carbon financing. So selling these carbon credits due to the savings from moving from charcoal to electric cooking, that can provide a revenue stream. And the thing about electric cooking is you can have monitoring inside the device that means that these credits are very high quality. People really know when people are cooking because they can be measured, and the prices for those can be quite high. So it's also possible to get carbon financing for e-cooking transition. So maybe I'll just stop there and ask if there are any questions so far about that first section. Rajab, yeah, would you like to unmute?
Yeah, thank you. I have been seeing about the PayGo programs. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Example, when we are about to programs to reach the undeserved population, and I'll see if they can try to implement the PayGo program. Can it be sustained, or basically we need to find an opportunity away from PayGo? Because I see from some kind of awareness from people who are lived in deserved populations, some people, when you try to share such kind of technology, I mean the PayGo, some people who may try even to misuse such products. So is there a necessity of try to distribute using PayGo, or we just part of the means of business plan during the marketing strategies?
Yeah, you don't have to use PayGo. We're just presenting it as here as an option. It's a way that can reduce the upfront cost for the customer. But in terms of the seed fund, you can use you're free to create the kind of business strategy and business plan that you want to create.
Okay, thank you. I think I have an additional question. Once I reviewed it was a document previously you've been explained about the distribution into institutions. Maybe it can be in academic institutions or whatever, any kind of institution which involve large populations. So my question was, for example, apart from a business plan, I was taking consideration to try to make distribution into institution. I mean, like a public institution, maybe in academic institutions. So, but I remember you restricted that we are not given opportunity to have a distribution in this public, institution which involve large community, that there is an additional cost to need to incur. Can that be related with the fund programs, or maybe there's another way somebody can try to make a distribution to this large population community while using the same kind of fund? I mean, you have a different kind of, maybe I have an innovative channel that can try to distribute.
Yeah, I'll talk about that a bit more in this section. So hopefully what I'm about to talk about will answer that question about whether or not you can use this fund for institutions or other kinds of cooking.
Yeah, thank you.
Henry.
Okay, sorry, it's not Henry himself only, but also we join two of people. I just have a question. You talked about the barriers of e-cooking. One of the barrier was repair and maintenance service are not in place. So as the project, don't you see the importance of capacity building training to maybe to youth to be trained how to repair this device, so it can also encourages more people to buy this to buy this product.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, so we think repair and maintenance is really important, and part of the program that we're running in Tanzania is about developing the skills of technicians or fundis in Tanzania. So there is a component that is looking at designing curriculum for training fundis and also rolling that training out. So yeah, that is something that we think is important. But as suppliers of e-cooking appliances, it's also something that supplier needs to think about. How do they support their customer, particularly if there are repairs and maintenance needed within the warranty period? So in the first couple of years, then it's something that the supplier also needs to be thinking about. Jane.
Thanks, Anna. So it's just a comment in the chat. I'm assuming you can't see the chat.
No.
Okay. So it's really hard to make people pay first, then pay the rest later. They always find a way to not pay the rest, is the comment.
Yes, that is a challenge. And that, yeah, absolutely, that is a challenge, paying in installments. I mean, I guess this is why things like pay-as-you-go cooking, where the device is locked unless you pay. So it has that technology that it is locked unless the customer is paying, right? Because it's connected to the mobile money payments. That's why that scheme can be really good. But that's a useful remark, and maybe when we get more into the business plan discussion, we can talk a bit more about that.
A very quick one, Anna. Can the funds be used to subsidize the project?
We'll get into that. We'll get into all of that.
All right.
Thank you. So let's get into a bit more detail on the seed fund itself.
And we have a question from our side here.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
So my question is, so we mentioned that we have some of the barriers and how to bring the business into model is by doing the OBF, which is the TANESCO model, or there's the carbon financing, which I'm not very clear with yet. Then there's the pay as you go. The question is, are these platforms already in place? And you're asking us as people who are bidding to choose what we find appropriate, or are we trying to figure out what works? Is it there? Are they already in place? Or is it something that's still on research? And because I heard the word you can choose. I'd like to understand what can I really choose? And is it working already in place, or is it something that we have to build up as a team? I hope my question is clear.
Thank you. So I will try and answer, and then Simon, if you're there, you could also weigh in if you have any additional comments. So PAYGO technology already exists. There are companies that offer it, that a supplier can go to and talk to that company and get the PAYGO technology integrated into the appliance. People have been selling on PAYGO already. More commonly, not in Tanzania yet, but there is a company in Tanzania that is starting. So yeah, these. I wouldn't say that these are at the research stage. There are companies who are selling eCooking on PAYGO, who are also using carbon, that have been doing so for some time. So we're saying that these are options as a supplier to think through, like how do you want to supply eCooking appliances? How are you going to make these devices affordable for customers so that they're not inaccessible? Simon, is there anything you would add to that question?
Yes, just to reaffirm that PAYGO has been around for other products for a long time now, and is fairly established. And as Anna said, it's all in the ability to actually turn off the device that forces people to pay. Although it's really interesting talking to one huge Kenyan manufacturer, Kenyan supplier who does PAYGO, and their CEO told me once that actually they had never had to actually switch off a device. This is not for cooking, but for other solar products, because the very threat was enough to make people to pay. But I think the other thing that we've perhaps forgotten in this overcoming the upfront cost is there's no reason why we can't just use the normal SACCO or the microfinance institution to help people with that upfront cost. Of course, that doesn't overcome the repayment challenge. Then the MFI or the SACCO has to follow up. And, many SACCOs have their own mechanisms for following up with people and giving them a penalty if they don't pay. They're not eligible for future funds, etc. And then also just to say about the on-bill financing, the on-bill financing is a little bit more untried and untested. Interestingly, it was very tried and tested in the early days of equipment in Europe and America. So if we actually go back to the 1950s, then many things were part of your electricity supply, and the cost recovery was through little increments on your bill. That is just coming back into fashion now, and TANESCO will be exploring that. And again, the penalty there, if you don't if you don't pay is actually some loss of electricity supply. That actually makes life difficult for TANESCO because it's not easy for them to actually stop people's electricity. And therefore, this prepaid meter and being able to put it as a small extra on their prepaying kind of theoretically overcomes some of the reluctance to pay. So it's a mixture. PAYGO is quite established. MFIs and SACCOs quite established, and the on-bill financing is perhaps a little bit more tentative at the moment. We'll come back to carbon finance later on.
Jane?
Okay, we are having another hand here, Anna.
Okay. Okay, Charles, we'll take yours and then we'll go to Jane.
Okay.
Charles? Oh, I thought you meant, do you mean there's a question on your side?
But we didn't.
Yeah.
Yes, I had some people trying to refer back to
Okay,
some
but
of
we
their
haven't
projects.
actually checked this yet. We need to confirm that we can actually identify when the generator is running, when it's not running, like comparing against.
Yeah, so
Sorry. Okay.
Sorry, we were interrupted by Shedrack, and I have now muted him. Please, Charles, try your question again.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I was saying, I have heard some of the participants trying to refer the other project in which there were some restrictions. Now, my question is, based on this solution that have been presented here, are we allowed as potential suppliers to modify depending on the makeup of the market? Because, for example, you have said these are 4 types of financing, but I know the Tanzanian market is also diverse. There are some of the people that can pay upfront for the entire amount, and then they can continue buying the electricity and cook without any problem. I think there should be a room to customize depending on the type of the customer that you're going to serve. That would be my suggestion. And I think it's for all of us as potential suppliers to understand that the supply chain for eCooking Tanzania is still in an infant stage. It's for us to develop and see what works for us and what doesn't work, and then we see what to scale. Thank you.
Thank you for that contribution. That's absolutely right. Yep. So it's exactly the case that the supply chain is nascent, and it is for suppliers to figure out what works for you. And of course, we're not saying you have to use any of these methods. We are offering them as options. We are informing you that they are options out there. They are potential ways that you could look towards constructing a business plan. So of course, if you are targeting people who are have more money, then it's possible for them to pay upfront, then that's absolutely fine. So Jane, do you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Anna. So again, it's a comment in the chat about the warranty of appliances. What about the warrant? So if customer uses some of the technician to unlock the systems, Rajab, I think that I'm not really sure what you're asking there. It might be worth you unmuting and asking your question directly.
Okay, my question is, are we allowed to modify this type of solution that have been presented, or we have to just take this and put it into the market? That was my question.
You're allowed to modify in terms of what method you use to sell the device. That's up to you to design. That's part of the business plan. You cannot, there are some restrictions in terms of what devices are to be included in the seed fund. But yeah, you can choose the method the way to market the device. And that includes the sales plan that can be chosen. In terms of the question that was in the chat, we'll talk a bit more about warranty and stuff later. I reckon that if we just do the next little bit of presentation, some of the questions that are around will be answered. But if anything is not answered by the end, then please ask your question again. If we have not understood you properly, or if we have not answered clearly, please do answer the question again. Ask the question again. What I will do now is we'll keep going and see if this helps to clarify. So there was a webinar about this seed fund. If you haven't watched it, please watch it, because I will not be repeating everything that is in the webinar. So it's important that you go and watch that. This isn't just going to be a repetition of it, but I will touch on some of the aspects, and that talks about how to apply. So for this seed fund, there are eligible appliances, and they are here. They are the electric pressure cooker, the induction hob, the rice cooker, and the air fryer. This means that anything not on this slide is not eligible. So for example, microwaves, hot plates, electric ovens, blenders, kettles. You cannot apply for this seed fund to gain finance for vending these appliances. It has to be these 4. In terms of numbers of appliances, and this will speak to the question about institutions. So if you're looking at households, you must be looking to sell a minimum of 500 appliances. So we're looking at household level appliances there. But maybe you are looking at a different target market, for example, institutions or street vendors. Now, this target market will require larger appliances, and those will be more expensive. So if you want to do that, you are free to do that and apply for the seed funding, but you do need to propose a reasonable number of appliances in your application. It won't be possible to do 500 huge electric cooking appliances for schools because the money won't stretch that far. But in your proposal, you need to adjust. You need to make a calculation and adjust. And you should also know that your application will be judged and looked at according to the value for money. So as you're making that calculation, be aware that we will be looking at value for money in your application. So does that make sense? If you want to do something that is not household, that is schools, there's street vendors, prisons, whatever public institution, where the appliances need to be much bigger, you need to make a calculation as to how many and propose this in your business plan, in your application. So hopefully that answers the institution's question. So now we're going to start reasonably on time, the section on sustainable business plans. And this is the bit that I think we will be able to have lots of discussion around some of what we've talked about. So pay-go, how to make sure people pay, the option of using a SACCO, etc. So a sustainable business plan is a plan which shows how, after the grant funding is over, the business will be able to continue. It shows how there will be income, it shows how the income will be used to purchase more stock, to purchase more appliances. And the idea is that the income or the incoming cash flow is larger than the costs to run the business. And so the business is not reliant on grant funding into the future. So that's what we mean by a sustainable business plan. So the first step, the kind of foundational step, is to determine who are your target customers. And this is open to selection by you guys. The supplier can choose who are you targeting to sell eCooking appliances. And of course, this then impacts what your business plan is. What are the payment methods? Do you need to help with the upfront cost or not? So you need to look at what market segment are you looking at and where are they? So it might be a particular demographic. It might be So it might be working women, it might be students, whatever, people that might need to cook quickly in the evenings, and it might be in a particular geographic location. So obviously somewhere that has electricity, if you're looking at on-grid e-cooking, is helpful. Dodoma, Dar, Mwanza, this all needs to be determined. So this is the first step, to decide who are your target customers. And then to consider, are you selling to those end users directly? Are you going to be the person selling to the cook, to the household? Or are you selling to other businesses and then they will sell on? And I think Simon will talk a bit more about that. And so once you've decided that, we will tackle a sustainable business plan using 2 journeys. So what do we mean by journeys? Well, the first one is the customer journey. It's thinking about the customer experience and thinking about, where does the customer touch your business, touch your organization? And there's actually quite a long journey of acquiring and using an appliance. And so we'll go through that and what you need to do to achieve a sale, and also to achieve a happy customer, because of course a sale doesn't mean a happy customer if they don't use the appliance and they don't see the importance of it. And then we will go into the financial journey of the organization. So Simon, can I hand over to you?
Yep, thank you, Anna. Just checking you can hear me, Charles.
Yes, we can hear you, Simon.
Great, thank you. I'll just acknowledge Philbert's comment in the chat, which is that it's not that most people don't want to pay. It's just those few people that don't want to pay. It's there are ways of dealing with your customer. So let's not get too tied up on how good everybody is at repaying once you give them a loan, or once you give them some sort of pay-go option. So it's when we have asked for sustainable business plans in the past, we get a lot of vague words about we'll go to this market or that market and we will sell. And there's very little detail of who is going to sell the product, how are they going to communicate with the customer, what the expectations are. So sometimes in other countries, people go to all the expense of going to an agricultural show to show the EPCs and to try and sell, and then they come away having sold 4, and that barely justifies the cost of traveling to the show, and basically people are making a loss. So in learning from some of our previous challenge funds, we've put on this webinar to try and get you to think through, please, all of the different steps that make up for a good sustainable business plan. And as Anna said, we've orientated this around the customer journey. Sorry, I'm getting an echo, so I'm just going to check if anybody's got their mics unmuted. Yep, Samuel. Right. Sorry, Samuel. I'm going to mute you. Okay. So next slide, please. So these are basic questions. I'm not trying to talk down to you. This is an adult to adult conversation. You are welcome to put questions in the chat, put your hand up, come back to us. But we want to keep it in realistic language. So how do people find out about your product? Are you going to go to agricultural shows? Are you going to go door to door with agents? Are you going to pay for a big billboard in the center of Dar es Salaam? There are marketing costs to just make people aware. Now you'll see that in fact, everybody on the internet and in business schools differentiates between awareness and acquisition, and we'll come to the acquisition in a moment. The first step of the customer is just to become aware of your product. Again, if you have a supermarket, then your product might be on the shelf. That costs you money because you've got to give that supermarket upfront products that they may or may not sell. You may do deals with little dukas in villages, and they may have one to show people. These are all potential costs to you to actually get your product known. And so what we would like in the application is for you to explain, how will people find out about your product? How will you distinguish your product from similar products? Anna passingly spoke about quality. Is your product going to get a reputation for quality, or are people going to see it alongside a cheaper, low quality product and not be able to distinguish what makes your product better than a very similar one? We have, I'm not sure how many people we have 20 plus people in the room and online. So actually, presumably 20 of you are going to be competing with each other. Some of you will be in different geographic areas of Tanzania, but some of you might be in the same area. So how are you going to make your product better than the person sitting next to you? I'm not trying to create rivalry. I'm trying to be realistic. You need customers to see your product, to know what it can do, and and the next step will be to choose your product. Right. Thank you for the smiley face, whoever that was. So what messages will capture people's attention? Anna has very quickly gone through the EPC is that much cheaper than LPG and charcoal. Here's a graph that shows. Graphs don't mean much to people. You can have a conversation with them and you can say that the EPC is cheaper. Some people will turn around and say, prove it to me. Some people will take your word for it because you've built up trust with them. Particularly this is, depends very much on the market you're going for. If you're going for the urban market, then there might be very few relationships that you can build on. And it is all about sort of Western marketing. Whereas if you go to rural areas, once you've caught the first person or you've got the chief interested, then he might have the trust of other people, or neighbors can tell each other. So what messages will capture the attention? Again, we find that the health message doesn't actually capture people's attention, even though the EPC any e-cooking devices don't give off smoke, and that makes a difference to life expectancy. That's not something that people are that interested in. Whereas time saving, the ability to start a meal and walk away, the quickness, and the fact that it's cooking so quickly, those are messages that really capture people's attention. And so you get slogans, smart device, smart cooking, that sort of thing. So, and what channels will you use to create that awareness? I've talked about agricultural shows, but of course there's radio. Radio seems to be very popular still in Tanzania, particularly rural areas. You've got the whole social media, which is changing every day. And, are you just going to create a Facebook page or do Instagram posts? In Kenya, we have some experience of how influencers, they call them influencers, who actually create cooking channels on Instagram, and then people follow them and are learning, new possibilities, new recipes, new devices. And so will you make an alliance with social media? Is social media strong enough in Tanzania yet? I don't know. You can see the grey beard. I am a Mzee, and the behavior of the young people sometimes confuses me. So, but please explain in your business plan, what is your marketing strategy, and actually who within your company or is going to handle that? Is that going to be a little side job for the managing director, or are you actually going to hire salespeople? Are you going to hire marketing people? Sorry, I'm just keeping for hands. Right. So, that's all about just creating awareness. Now, we acknowledge that e-cooking within Tanzania is newish, new, and so part of our wider plans, of which the seed fund is one aspect, will be a national e-cooking awareness raising campaign, and that should start, I believe, December. Anna, is December? Anyway, it starts soon.
No.
When? June, right, beg your pardon. So if that starts June, that will make more sense with your application. You can anticipate it, and you can say whether you're going to work with them. How will you complement this awareness campaign? Please, I talked about costs. It costs to market, and that's a drain on your funding. And that has to be built into the price point of your units. And you need to say, what are you going to spend on marketing? Who handles the marketing? And any media costs? I'm going to pause there for questions. Okay, and no questions, so I'm going to carry on. Next slide, please. So in business schools that talk about this customer journey, they differentiate between that awareness raising and the customer considering whether they should buy. So you might be driving and you might see a billboard or a poster that says, "Oh, EPCs are really cheap." And so you've become cheap to cook food. Sorry. So you become aware that there is such a thing as an electric pressure cooker, but many people see that, take it into their brain, park it, might be useful in the future. Yeah. They don't necessarily consider, and therefore should my household, actually get one of these things? And so they differentiate awareness from consideration. And what you need to do as a sustainable business is work out how you're going to convert that awareness into consideration. And in fact, the next step will be acquisition. First, people need to consider whether they're going to buy it or not, and then they actually have to make a decision and a choice. So it's very important to work out, okay, so they've seen that billboard, they've seen that advert, they've seen that poster. Then how will you prompt them to actually consider whether it's relevant for them? And B, once they do consider and they approach you and your company, who is going to help them think that process through? So it's more easy to understand in the agricultural showground situation. You've got a whole bunch of people who are saying, "Whoa, look at this, this is fantastic." And the awareness is all about, "Hey, look at this is fantastic." Are your young people who are helping you do that showing trained to then say, have you, madam, considered actually getting one of these? Are you considering, what do you use at home? Would this make your life easy? So that begin that conversion process of the awareness into actual consideration and a sale. And for us, what we would like in the submission for your and showing us that you have actually thought through a sustainable business plan is to show us who that point of contact is, who will help them take awareness into consideration. Is it the receptionist? Is there a call center? Are you intending to collect the mobile numbers during the agricultural show and then actually follow up and phone them and say, have you considered getting one of these things? These are all standard sales techniques. This is not unique to eCooking. It's not new, but we would like you to explain to us what you intend to do, because I think it kind of relates to the person who asked the question. You say your researchers, is this all new? Are these tried and tested things? The eCooking is new to Tanzania, but the process by which people journey from a vague awareness to actually acquiring a product is a very established thing. And unfortunately, many people who are getting into eCooking in other countries just believe that because it's a new fancy product, they can just go and say, oh, look at this, it'll cook your food cheaper, and people will go, yeah, all right, I'll have one. It doesn't work like that. There has to be a system in place to help people through that journey. And that's what we would actually like to see evidence in your sustainable business plan that you have actually thought that through. I've put down here is the person that they're going to contact a trained sales agent or a friendly helper. Again, you can get some students to go with you to the agricultural show. You can give them a briefing. It cooks the food for less than charcoal. But those students will be enthusiastic, but they may not be trained in sales. Sales, to convert someone's thinking from an awareness to acquisition, is a skill in itself. It's I suspect many of us in this room are engineers, and engineers are not very good at selling. Engineers try to explain to you the working of the product. They're not actually asking the person, what is your situation at home? How could this device help? So that training, the sales agent, you've got to do some training costs there. You might have to give them, might have to give your staff a unit so that they're actually cooking with it at home, because when they're talking to customers, you want them to be able to say, oh yeah, I use it all the time. I could run into my kitchen and show you an electric pressure cooker that I've now been using for 12 years. And it's a device. I've not had to replace it. Yes, it does last that long. Yes, it cooks multiple foods. I don't cook everything in it, but I do use it nearly every day. So to be able to share that experience is helpful in that sales journey. And then if the salesperson actually convinces the customer to get one of these products, actually there's another step, which is how do they acquire it? Again, at the agricultural show, it might be that they put their hand in their pocket, and yes, thank you whoever asked the question about, well, there are some people that will just buy it. And it is true in some of our projects. We've talked about all this pay as you cook and the MFI and the SACCO and everything, and then found out that 50% of all sales were just cash. It's only, you know, and I'm not sure what the price of a goat is in Tanzania, but in other countries, goats tend to go for about $40. Well, it's only 2 goats, and then you've got a device that is saving you a huge amount of money in everyday monthly cooking. So after the customer has said, or the call center has done a follow-up call, and they say, yeah, we would like to get one, how do they get one? Yes, please. Next slide. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So before we go on to acquisition, Anna did say that you could put in a proposal to sell business to business rather than business to customer. It is you may want to sell your products to the little dukers in a particular urban area, and so how does that process of consideration change? Again, it's still, who is the first point of contact? How is the little shop that might sell your product going to contact you as a customer, as a company? And is that a different person from a different section of your business that's trying to do sell your product directly to customers? You need a slightly different language. If you're going to try and convince shops to sell your product, then it's all about the margins. How much extra margin can they sell it for? What will be their profit? It's a different set of language than trying to convince a customer to buy a single product. You're trying to convince another shop or another company to distribute your product in an area, and you have to have that business to business conversation. Who is trained to actually talk to the shopkeepers, etc.? Next one, please. Okay, I'm just going to look at the time, and I'm just going to ask Jane, are we breaking for lunch at 1 o'clock? I believe it's 12:30 in Tanzania now.
Yeah, 1 o'clock, Simon.
Okay, so I'll carry on for another couple of slides. No, maybe I should pause at this one, just to ask any questions about marketing, awareness raising, and consideration.
We have a question here, Simon.
Please.
So Simon, it's bringing to my attention that even if you're doing a marketing or trying to develop a market or a business plan, my biggest challenge at the moment, or maybe I'm asking for this too early, is what are the price points of this product at? I don't know what our collection point will be. Will we be buying from a wholesaler, or will we be receiving this from overseas? And I'd like to know what would be the price point for the 4 units, which you've mentioned, so that when you're building a business case, you build a business case based on pricing. I don't know if I'm asking this too early, but that's my concern.
Thank you. No, it's a good question, and you probably are asking it too early. We're going to come in the second half of these journeys to the journey of the business itself in acquiring those units, the price points of the units, and where you might get them. Yeah, so if you're okay, let's just park that question for the moment, and we'll come back to it later.
No question from our end, Simon.
Okay. Okay, so let's go on to conversion though.
We have a hand.
We have a hand. Sorry, Rajab.
Yeah, thank you. My question was the one who was supposed to raise the question about the challenge of the unit price. I mean, there's a little bit fluctuation. I'll call this not stable. For instance, I can just write the budget of buying a certain unit or a certain price. But while, for example, a person could win, the reason found the price has changed. So how do you consider about that? And what should we do once such kind of thing happens? Though I've been check the price exchange unit rate. You have been provided a certain calculator here, but there's such kind of scenario obvious happening during the estimation of the price of the unit, which are being taken to the market currently, and the upcoming, the forecast market, which is not even expected. Maybe the product or buying such kind of price may rise or roll. But basically, we don't have assurance of that. How do you consider that? And what should we do in order to maintain, due to that fluctuation of the price, regarding on the Tanzania against US dollars or GBP currency exchange rate?
Thank you. That is a very sensible question. Again, a little bit early. We were going to come to that later on, but I want to reinforce your question because, again, when we have run these sorts of challenge funds in other countries and asked for sustainable business plans, people have just given us the unit cost today, and then in their spreadsheet, they've just copy and pasted that right the way across for the next 5 years. And that's a ridiculous approach because of all the things you've just said, Rajab. Currency fluctuations, price increases, etc. So when we get to the business side, the unit cost business bit of the business, you're quite right that your spreadsheets and your forecasting have got to take all of this into account. What we're hoping to help you in this application, we're hoping to help you think through, how do I create a sustainable business? And if you make really conservative assumptions such that nothing changes, you're not going to have a sustainable business because you'll get 2 years down the line, currency fluctuations will have wiped out all your profit. So it's an excellent question, Rajab. It's again a little bit early in today's discussions. So again, I'm going to ask that we park it and come back to it. And then I saw on the chat flash up on my screen, Philbert said something. I think you should figure out what will work best for you. Yeah, ways to get the appliance and what margins you want. Yeah, again, we'll come back to that. All right, let me go back. Let me go back to, that's why we divided this into 2 journeys. There's your sustainable business plan with all your market and forecasting. At the moment, I'm trying to help you think through what are the actual costs, because you've got to, that's part of that forecasting that you want to put in. Are we going to do lots of marketing, which is going to cost a lot of money? Are we going to have a call center that follows up with people? Or are we just going to distribute our products to a few shops and fingers crossed, hope for the best? So having raised some awareness, having got some people to consider your product, how do you get that converting into an actual sale? And that's a question of, well, what is your sales agent structure? Is the receptionist who takes that initial inquiry trained to actually turn it into a sale, or does she pass it on to somebody else? Or is the person who's so convincing the MD, the managing director? What happens if he's busy schmoozing with the politicians? You need a structure in your business to turn that consideration and that awareness into convert it into an actual sales. And part of doing sales is being able to negotiate with the customer. So I've put down here, do they have the authority to offer discounts? Many sales agents around the world are given a range of prices that they can offer the product rather than a single price. And that relates to all those questions that you just asked, which is, what are our margins? what are our possibilities? If they give too high a discount, you've just lost all of your profit again. But if they don't give a discount and it's a fixed price, maybe people will walk away. Again, there's different cultures. In some situations, consumers assume they can bargain the price. In other situations, they understand it's a fixed price. This is what I get. If you do engage with these other mechanisms to overcome the upfront cost, the pay-as-you-go, the layaway, the installments, whatever, are the sales agents trained to explain those financial systems and its full cost over time? Again, there's a big debate going on in one of our other countries at the moment because the government has just changed the interest rate, and so people are saying such an interest rate can't work. Let's put on administration fees and other ways of just making money as part of the lending of finance process. You have to decide, and you have to decide whether you want to be completely transparent with the customer. What is the structure of that finance? Here we get caught out all the time because I have my mobile phone on contract, and I think I'm paying so much per month, and then every month somehow they slip in something else. So it can be very annoying, and you can lose your business reputation very quickly if you start messing the customers about. So it's important that the sales agent is clearly explaining to the customer what the real costs are. And then again, I've talked about training those sales agents to make sure that they understand all the different features of the appliance. You don't want people going away and cooking with an electric pressure cooker all the time with its lid off. There is a role for that pressure. It's temperature that cooks food, not energy. And so when you raise the temperature, you can cook food with a lot less energy. I had one or two noises. I'm just checking. No, that wasn't a hand up or anything. Okay, next slide, please. I've kind of touched on this already. Have they been trained to actually make a sale? Are they just going to explain everything and then leave it? Or are they going to explain everything and then say, so would you like one? Again, there's a big difference in those approaches. There are techniques to sales. Here in the UK, if you go to buy a car, people will spend a lot of time with you because they know that you gradually become a friend of the salesman, and you begin to feel obligated that, oh, well, I've used an hour of his time, therefore I really ought to buy this product. So there are sales techniques. What are you gonna, but this is only relevant to your application for the seed fund because it's about training costs. Are you actually going to train people, or are you going to just hire people and hope for the best? Do they know some very practical things? When you're talking to a consumer that is showing interest and you're trying to convert them, do you know the decision making in that household? If you're talking to the woman, does she need to go and talk to her husband to make the decision? Do they make joint decisions? All the research says that the old way of the woman having no say in the thing is moving on in modern society. It's very often joint decisions. So it's about involving both of them. You have stories about the mother-in-law vetoing changing the cooking system. Cooking is really crucial to people's culture and households. And, there is some amongst the older people, and again, I can speak because I am old, there is some resistance to changing the way we do things. So make sure that the salesman is trained to make sure that they're speaking to the right person, and always take the phone number, please, because you need to follow up, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. Keeping an eye on time. Next slide, please. So then you're making sales, they've converted, they say, yes, please, I'd like one. Right. What's the paperwork involved? Is it literally hand over the box and hand over the cash? If it's a cash purchase, maybe that's the case. But if it's one of these loans, pay-go, lease deals, there's bound to be some paperwork. Who's authorized to complete that paperwork? Who's going to do those credit arrangements with the MFI, the SACCO? Are you going to send the customer away and say, oh, I'm sure your local SACCO will lend you the money for this? Or have you made an alliance with the SACCOs? Again, in other countries, we have people who have made alliances with banks and with SACCOs and MFI institutions, microfinance institutions, and made a sort of pre-arrangement. Yes, they have explained, because often MFIs don't realize that this new device, this eCooking device, will actually save the household money. So loans are often made based on how are you going to pay it back. And if you can explain to the MFI, look, with an EPC, people will be saving this money. They'll be able to pay you back from their savings. If you do all that explanation first to the MFI and get them to pre-authorize loans on the eCooking devices, is that part of your business? Or, as I say, are you just going to send the customer away and say, you can get the money from the bank? Or are you going to have a pre-arrangement? If you're using pay-go, that requires a lot of capital from yourselves up front. Again, are you going to factor that into your business? Because just referring to the person who asked the question about cash sales, if you go to an agricultural show and you sell it for cash, then that money is immediately available to restock and to buy the next set of appliances. If you do it all on pay-go, then you're only getting the deposits, and you've got to wait several months before you get that cash back to be able to restock. You need to explain to us, please. Yeah, that's a bit more in the business side of things. Let me stick with this customer journey. Who is authorized to actually do that credit check, and then actually very simple thing: where does the customer go to get the appliance? Are they going to collect it, or are you going to deliver? There's quite a lot of delivery going on nowadays, particularly with online purchases, and that could create storage and transport and delivery costs for you in your business plan. Checking time. Go on, and we've still got 10 minutes. Let's go to the next slide. Again, if you're doing B2B, that all very subtly changes. So again, it's almost the same questions. Who's authorized to do a business-to-business deal? Who's going to work out the credit arrangements? And again, how are you going to do the deliveries? Is it delivery to a business warehouse, or are you expecting to hire a truck yourself and deliver it to the shop? Who knows? All of those have implications on your costs, and we would like in your application for you to explain what your intentions are. I think Philbert in the chat said something about we all have to decide what we want to do. That is quite right. you know, we're giving you the landscape that we would like you to walk us through and show us how you're going to navigate that road. We don't just want, and this is what we've had in the past, is this starting point. Yeah, I'm going to get some eCooking appliances and I'm going to sell 500, and the horizon is selling 500. No, we want you to explain how you get from here to there, and all the steps along the way, and what the cost of those steps are. Next slide, please. Once the customer has the appliance, you need to follow up. You need to work out whether they're happy with it. If you have a whole load of unhappy customers out there who are having very bad experience, then that will doom your business gradually. So again, it's all about, well, are you going to have a call center, having taken the phone number of the customer? Are you going to follow up with them, ask them how they're getting on? If it's in a more peri-urban rural setting and there's some sort of community, how are you going to encourage people to talk to each other and explain how they're getting on with the product? You know, again, bad news travels faster than good news. So you've only got to have one product in a community where people are not getting on with it, and they, you know, it broke down after the first day and there's no mechanism for getting it repaired. That news will travel very fast. And then how are you going to actually handle those complaints? Again, we'll come back to the warranty question and the repair and fix. But in terms of yourself, you've got to work out, what does that mean for staffing, for call centers, for visits? Are you actually going to go and visit customers and ask them how they're getting on, and maybe crowd in some neighbors and say, oh, how is, you know, have you seen how Auntie is working with this electric pressure cooker or this induction stove, etc. The possibility with the pay-as-you-cook and with the Internet of Things is that you can actually track anonymously the usage data. Sorry, I said anonymously. Actually, all the machines will have a code number, and you can actually go back to that customer and say, you don't seem to be using the device. Is there a reason for that? And you can nudge them into more use. That becomes very important in the if you've accessed a carbon project. We'll come to carbon a little bit later on, but the short version is there has been a lot of pushback against carbon credits for stoves, because there's been a distribution of stoves and an assumption that people use them. And the suppliers have claimed carbon credits when actually people were not using them. That was all captured in an academic paper early this year, and it showed that people who were purchasing carbon credits were perhaps paying 9 times as much as they really ought to, over-crediting by a factor of 9. And so the whole price of carbon credits dropped, and the pushback against that paying of carbon credits based on sales is very, very strong. The people do not want to pay carbon credits based on sales. But the beauty of electric cooking is that it's very easy to measure the actual use of the stove. So obviously Tanesco will have a view on how many units people are buying, but there is this thing called Internet of Things, which can go inside the appliance and can actually tell you whether the people are using the device or not. Then the carbon credit gets paid out on actual use. But the actual use will depend on the customer's experience. If they started using it and they don't like it, they may stop using it. So again, is there somebody who's going to monitor the data, and are you going to have a system whereby if people are gradually not using it, again, you make that strategic phone call or visit that nudges them or encourages them to use it. Find out why they don't like it. Maybe they lost their pan on an induction stove or something like that. And again, a good business practice, how are you going to communicate from one customer to another their good experiences? So Instapot, which was one of the most famous electric pressure cookers in America, built their entire marketing just by getting customers to talk to each other. And they call it the school gate approach, where basically mothers who are collecting their children from the school, talk to each other and say, "Oh, I've got one of these devices. It's really good. You should get one." Okay, it is 1 o'clock. I think we should, my voice is going, and Anna spoke for a while as well. So I think let's take a break there. And Jane, how long, or Charles, how long have people got for lunch?
I think about 1 hour, Jane?
Yep, so we planned for an hour. I guess if we reconvene at kind of 2 o'clock your time.
Okay.
Yep. I'll stop the recording, and if we can reconnect at 2 p.m. Does that work for everybody?
Okay, it works from our end, Jen.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll see you back here then at 2 p.m.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.